I stood in the kitchen doorway, watching them through the crack. My mother-in-law's voice carried through the house like poison in the air. She'll never be good enough for our son. Look at her, cooking like a peasant. No class. No breeding. My sister-in-law laughed, that cruel sound I'd heard 100 times before. They didn't know I was recording. They didn't know tonight was the night everything changed. My hands shook as I held my phone steady. For 3 years, I'd smiled through their insults. I swallowed my pride at every family dinner while they praised my husband's ex-girlfriend. I'd cleaned their messes, cooked their meals, and accepted their cold shoulders. But last week, I found something. Something that would expose them all. The family gathering was set for tonight. Everyone would be here, aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole dynasty. They'd gather in our living room like they always did, acting like they owned the place. My husband Marcus would sit there, silent as always, too weak to defend me. But tonight, I wouldn't need his defense. I'd prepared everything. The video compilation was ready, every cruel comment, every whispered insult, every moment they thought I couldn't hear. But that wasn't the trap. That was just the bait. The real trap was what I discovered in my mother-in-law's old photo albums. The truth she'd been hiding for 30 years. My phone buzzed. Marcus, Mom says she's bringing extra guests. Please make more food. I smiled. Perfect. The more witnesses, the better. I went back to the kitchen and continued cooking, letting them think they'd won. Let them think I was still the quiet, submissive daughter-in-law who would take their abuse forever. The doorbell rang at 7. They arrived like royalty, expecting me to bow. My mother-in-law Helen swept in wearing diamonds, her sister Margaret right behind her. Is the food ready? We're starving. No hello. No thank you. Just demands. I nodded and smiled. Everything's ready. Please, sit in the living room. I have a surprise for everyone tonight. Helen's eyes narrowed. What kind of surprise? I could see the suspicion there, the fear. Good. She should be afraid. Let me take you back 3 years. That's when I met Marcus. He was different then, or maybe I just wanted to believe he was. We met at a coffee shop where I worked part-time while finishing nursing school. He was handsome, successful, and a lawyer from a good family. When he asked me out, I thought I was lucky. Our first date was magical. He listened when I talked about my dreams of opening a free clinic in my neighborhood. He didn't judge me for growing up poor, for working 3 jobs to put myself through school. You're amazing, he said. Strong. Independent. Everything I've been looking for. I fell fast and hard. But I should have noticed the warning signs. When he introduced me to his family, Helen looked me up and down like I was something stuck to her shoe. A nurse, she said, her voice dripping with disappointment. Marcus, darling, what happened to that lovely corporate lawyer you were dating? Catherine. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Mom, that's over. I'm with someone new now. Helen's smile was ice. Of course. How modern of you. That's when I met his sister, Victoria. She was everything Helen wanted, married to a doctor, 3 perfect children, a house in the suburbs. She barely acknowledged me. You're the coffee girl, she said. Not a question. An accusation. The engagement happened fast. Marcus proposed after 6 months. I said yes because I loved him, because I thought love was enough. The wedding was Helen's production. She controlled everything, the venue, the flowers, the guest list. My family sat in the back, outnumbered and uncomfortable. Helen didn't speak to my mother once. On our wedding night, Helen cornered me in the bathroom. Listen carefully, she said, her voice low and sharp. You may have my son's last name, but you'll never have this family's respect. You're not one of us. You never will be. I stood there, frozen, my wedding dress suddenly feeling like a costume. I should have run then. But I didn't. The first year of marriage was a slow poison. Every Sunday dinner at Helen's house was torture. She'd serve Marcus first, then Victoria's husband, then the children, then Victoria. I'd get my food last, sometimes cold. She'd ask Marcus about work, about his cases, about his life. She never asked me anything. Victoria was worse. She'd make comments about my clothes, my hair, my cooking. "Is this how they eat where you're from?" she'd ask, picking at the food I'd brought. Once, she actually threw away a dessert I'd made, claiming it was too sweet. Marcus said nothing. He never said anything. The breaking point came slowly, then all at once. It started with small things. Helen would call Marcus at all hours, asking him to come fix something at her house. A leaky faucet. A stuck window. Things any handyman could fix, but no, it had to be Marcus. And Marcus would go, leaving me alone in our apartment, night after night. Then came the comparisons. Catherine would have known how to handle this, Helen would say whenever I did something wrong. Catherine, the ex-girlfriend, became a ghost that haunted our marriage. She was perfect, apparently. Beautiful, sophisticated, from the right family. Everything I wasn't. I tried to win them over. I really did. I cooked their favorite meals, remembered their birthdays, and bought thoughtful gifts. Helen returned every gift I gave her. "Not my style," she'd say, handing back the carefully chosen scarf or book. Victoria would laugh. "You really don't know us at all, do you?" The worst part was Marcus. My husband, who promised to love and protect me, just watched. "They'll come around," he'd say. "They just need time." But time only made it worse. They sensed his weakness, his inability to stand up to them. And they used it. One night, 6 months into our marriage, I overheard Helen and Victoria talking in the kitchen. I'd gone to use the bathroom and paused when I heard my name. "She trapped him with that poor girl act," Helen said. Playing victim, acting all sweet and innocent. Marcus was too kind-hearted to see through it. "I'll give it another year," Victoria replied. "Then he'll wake up and realize what a mistake he made. Catherine's still single, you know." They laughed. My heart cracked. Not because of their words, I'd heard worse, but because when I walked back into the dining room, Marcus was sitting there, smiling, completely unaware or unwilling to defend me. That's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I noticed how Helen controlled everything. How she made decisions about our lives without asking us. She chose our vacation destinations, our holiday plans, even suggested what car Marcus should buy. And Marcus? He obeyed like a child. I started documenting everything. Not for revenge, not yet. Just to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. Every cruel comment. Every dismissive gesture. Every time they excluded me from family photos or conversations. I had a folder on my phone labeled evidence, though I didn't know what I'd ever do with it. Then came the incident with the inheritance. Marcus's grandfather passed away and left him a significant sum of money. We were planning to use it as a down payment on a house. Our first real home together. I was so excited. But Helen had other plans. That money should go into the family trust, she announced at the will reading. It's what grandfather would have wanted. Marcus nodded immediately. "You're right, Mom." I stared at him. "We discussed this. We agreed," Helen cut me off. "This is a family business. You wouldn't understand." 2 months ago, I was helping Helen clean out her attic. She demanded Marcus come help, but he had a court case, so I volunteered. Anything to gain her approval. She looked annoyed but agreed. "Fine. Just don't break anything. Some of these items are valuable." The attic was full of memories, old furniture, boxes of photographs, Marcus's childhood toys. I found myself drawn to a leather trunk in the corner, covered in dust. "What's in here?" I called down. "Nothing important," Helen shouted back. "Just old papers." But something in her voice made me curious. Inside the trunk, beneath yellowed newspapers and moth-eaten blankets, I found a photo album. The cover was elegant, expensive. I opened it and my breath caught. The photos were from a wedding, Helen's wedding to Marcus's father. But something was wrong. Helen looked young in the photos, barely 20. She wore a simple white dress, nothing like the elaborate gown she'd insisted I look at when planning my wedding. But it was the date that stopped me cold. The date written on the first page, June 15, 1984. Marcus was born in October 1984. 4 months after the wedding. I flipped through more pages. There were no engagement photos. No romantic couple shots. Just the wedding, rushed and simple, and then suddenly photos of baby Marcus. I found more albums. Birthday parties, family gatherings. But there was something missing, photos of Helen and her husband together. They appeared together with Marcus, but never just the two of them. No anniversary celebrations. No romantic vacations. Then I found the letters. They were hidden in an envelope at the bottom of the trunk, tied with a faded ribbon. Love letters, but not between Helen and her husband. These were from someone named James. "My darling Helen," one began. "I know we can never be together, but I'll always love you. Our son," I stopped reading. "Our son." My hands shook as I took photos of everything with my phone. The wedding date. The letters. Everything. This was it. Helen, who'd spent 3 years judging me, calling me low class, unsuitable, Helen had been pregnant before marriage. In her world, in her generation, that was a scandal. That was a shame. But there was more. I dug deeper and found financial records. Helen's family had been poor, not middle class like she claimed, but actually poor. Her father worked in a factory. She'd married Marcus's father not for love, but for security. For status. Everything she'd criticized me for, she'd done herself. I thought about confronting her right then. But something stopped me. This information was power. And I needed to be smart about how I used it. I carefully packed everything back into the trunk, took my photos, and climbed down from the attic. Helen was in the kitchen, drinking tea. "Find anything interesting?" she asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "Just old memories," I replied, matching her tone. "Your family has quite a history." Something flickered across her face, fear. "Yes, well. The past should stay in the past." I spent weeks planning. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. About showing Marcus who his mother really was. About making him see what his silence had cost our marriage. But I had to be careful. Helen was powerful, vindictive. If I moved too soon, she'd find a way to twist everything. I started with small tests. At the next family dinner, I mentioned how important honesty was in families. "Don't you think, Helen, that we should all be truthful with each other?" She smiled that cold smile. "Of course, dear. Honesty is everything." The hypocrisy was stunning. Victoria sensed something was different. "You seem confident lately," she said, with suspicion in her voice. "Have you been taking assertiveness classes or something?" I smiled sweetly. "Just learning to stand up for myself. You'd be surprised by what I've learned recently." I also started documenting their current behavior more carefully. I set up a small camera in our living room, hidden in a bookshelf. Every Sunday, they'd come over and tear me apart, not knowing I was recording everything. Helen criticized my housekeeping. Victoria mocking my clothes. Their endless comparisons to Catherine. Marcus remained oblivious. Or maybe he chose to be. One night, I tried talking to him. "Your family treats me terribly. You know that, right?" He sighed. "They're just set in their ways. If you try harder to fit in," I cut him off. "Fit in? Marcus, your mother returns my gifts. Your sister throws away my food. How am I supposed to fit in with people who don't want me there?" "You're being dramatic," he said, turning back to his laptop. That's when I knew. He would never defend me. He would never choose me over them. This trap I was setting wasn't just for Helen and Victoria. It was for Marcus too. He needed to see the truth, even if it destroyed us. I invited my own family to the gathering. My mother, my sisters, my aunt who raised me. Helen protested. This is a family dinner. Just our family. I smiled. They are family. My family. And I want them there for this special announcement. She couldn't refuse without looking cruel, so she agreed, her jaw tight. The day of the gathering, I prepared everything. The good dishes. The expensive wine. The photo compilation on my laptop, ready to display on our TV. And the album, Helen's wedding album, and the letters, hidden in our bedroom, ready for the final reveal. My heart pounded all day. Part of me wanted to back out. This would destroy relationships, cause pain, maybe even end my marriage. But then I remembered 3 years of abuse. 3 years of being made to feel small, worthless, not good enough. 3 years of my husband choosing his mother over me. No. They'd made this bed. Now they could lie in it. They arrived like they always did, loud, entitled, taking over my home. Helen swept in first, already criticizing. You used the blue napkins. I specifically said the white ones looked more elegant. Victoria followed, her children running past me without saying hello. God, I hope the food is better than last time. I was sick for days. My family arrived quietly, uncomfortable. My mother hugged me tight. Are you sure about this, baby? She whispered. I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. My sisters positioned themselves near me, protective. They knew what was coming. I told them everything. Marcus played host, greeting everyone, completely unaware. He was good at playing pretend, at acting like we were one big happy family. Helen held court on the main sofa, Victoria beside her like a princess. Margaret, Helen's sister, joined them, completing the trio of judgment. Shall we eat? I announced. Everyone moved to the dining room. I'd set the table beautifully, Helen couldn't criticize that. The food was perfect. I'd spent all day cooking their favorite dishes. This had to be flawless. They needed to have no ammunition. During dinner, Helen started her usual routine. Marcus, darling, how's work? I heard the Peterson case is going well. Marcus launched into a detailed explanation. She listened intently, asking questions, praising him. Then she turned to Victoria. And your children? I heard little Emma got straight A's again. Victoria beamed. She did. She's gifted, just like her father. They talked for 10 minutes about the children, about Victoria's perfect life, her perfect marriage. I sat there, invisible. My mother's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tight. Soon, I mouthed. After dinner, as I served dessert, Victoria made her move. This cake is dry, she announced, pushing her plate away. Did you use the recipe I gave you? Because it doesn't taste right. Helen nodded. I thought the same thing. Perhaps cooking just isn't your strength, dear. My sister stood up. The cake is delicious. And even if it wasn't, you don't need to be rude. Victoria laughed. Oh, we've got a defender. How sweet. She turned to me. You know what your problem is. You're too sensitive. This family is honest with each other. If you can't handle honest feedback. Honest? I interrupted. The room went silent. You want to talk about honesty? I stood up, my heart racing. Then let's be honest. Everyone, please move to the living room. I have something to show you. Helen's face went pale. What are you doing? I smiled. Having an honest conversation. Isn't that what you want? For this family to be honest with each other. Everyone settled into the living room. I connected my laptop to the TV, my hand surprisingly steady. Marcus looked confused. What's going on? Helen stood up. This is ridiculous. I won't be part of whatever little drama. Sit down, Mom, I said quietly. Something in my voice made her obey. She sank back onto the sofa, her fingers gripping the armrest. Victoria watched me, suspicious. If this is some kind of intervention. It's not, I replied. It's a revelation. I pressed play. The screen filled with the first video, Helen and Victoria in our kitchen 2 weeks ago. Their voices came through the speakers, crystal clear. She'll never be good enough. Look at her, cooking like a peasant. No class. No breeding. The room exploded. My mother gasped. My sisters turned to stare at Helen. But I kept playing. Video after video. 3 years of cruelty captured in high definition. Helen mocking my education. Victoria threw away my dessert. Margaret called me the help at a family party. All of it. Every painful moment. Marcus's face went from confusion to shock to horror. How long have you been recording? I paused the video. Long enough. Long enough to document exactly how your family treats me. Long enough to prove I'm not imagining things, not being dramatic, not being too sensitive. Victoria stood up. You had no right. I had every right. My voice cracked. Every right to defend myself. Every right to document abuse. Yes, abuse. That's what this is. Emotional abuse. And you, I pointed at Marcus, you let it happen. You sat there, silent, while your mother and sister destroyed me piece by piece. Helen found her voice. This is manipulation. You're trying to turn Marcus against his own family. I laughed, bitter. Turn him against you. Helen, you've done that yourself. Every cruel word, every dismissive gesture, every comparison to his ex-girlfriend, that's all you. I just made sure there was proof. The room was chaotic. My family supported me. Victoria was shouting. Helen looked like she might faint. But I wasn't done. You want to know what's really interesting? All of this I gestured to the screen, all of these judgments about class and breeding and being good enough. They're fascinating. Especially considering who you really are, Helen. Her face went from pale to ghost white. What are you talking about? Should I tell them? Or should we all take a trip to your attic? I walked to our bedroom and returned with the album. Helen's eyes went wide. Where did you get that? Her voice was barely a whisper. Put that back. That's private. But I was done respecting her privacy. She'd invaded every aspect of my life for 3 years. Now it was her turn. I opened the album to the wedding page. June 15, 1984, I read aloud. A lovely simple wedding. Nothing like the extravagant affair you insisted I have. I looked at Marcus. When's your birthday, honey? He looked confused. October 1984. Why the math hit him. His face changed. For months, I said quietly. Your parents got married in June. You were born in October. 4 months later. The room was dead silent. Victoria stood up. So what? They started a family quickly. That's not. She was pregnant before marriage, Margaret said suddenly. All eyes turned to her. She looked at Helen with something like satisfaction. I told you this would come out someday. You can't run from the truth forever. Helen's face crumpled. Margaret, please. But I wasn't done. I pulled out the letters. And there's more. Should I read these? Letters from someone named James. Letters about our son. Marcus stood up. What is she talking about? Mom. Helen's tears came then, real and ugly. Stop. Please, just stop. But Victoria grabbed the letters from my hand. Her eyes scanned the pages, widening with each line. Oh my God. Dad isn't. James is. What? Marcus demanded. Victoria looked at her mother, devastated. Dad isn't Marcus's biological father. Is he? The question hung in the air. Helen couldn't speak. She just sat there, crying, all her power drained away. Here's what I pieced together, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. Helen got pregnant by James. But James was poor, working class. Sound familiar? So she married Richard instead, a lawyer from a good family. She spent her whole life hiding that shame, building this perfect image of family and class and breeding. And then I came along. I looked at Helen. I reminded you of yourself. Poor. From the wrong side. Not good enough for your precious son. Except I actually loved Marcus. I didn't trap him. I didn't marry him for money. I married him because I thought he was different. But you couldn't stand it. You couldn't stand watching your son make the same mistake you did, falling for someone beneath him. Marcus sat down heavily. My whole life is a lie. Victoria was crying now too. Did Dad know? Did he know Marcus wasn't his? Helen nodded, broken. He knew. He loved Marcus anyway. He was a good man. Unlike you, my sister said coldly. You're a hypocrite. You judged this girl for 3 years for being exactly what you were, someone from a humble background trying to make a better life. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Marcus looked at me like I was a stranger. How long have you known? I met his eyes. 2 months. I found the album when your mother asked me to clean the attic. And you said nothing. You just plotted this. What should I have done, Marcus? Come to you quietly. So you could tell your mother and give her time to create a new lie. So you could convince me to keep quiet for the sake of family peace. I laughed bitterly. You never defended me. Not once in 3 years. Why would you start now? Victoria turned on her mother. How could you? How could you judge everyone, act so superior, when you were lying this whole time? Helen couldn't answer. She just cried, mascara running down her face. Margaret stood up. I'm leaving. I won't be part of this circus anymore. Circus? My mother's voice was sharp. Your sister spent years tormenting my daughter. Years. And now you want to leave because you're uncomfortable? Margaret paused at the door. Helen made her choices. We all have to live with our choices. She left. The room erupted again. Victoria and Helen were arguing. My family was defending me. Marcus sat in the middle, looking lost. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered every silent dinner, every ignored insult, every time he chose them over me. I want a divorce, I said. The room went silent. Marcus looked up. What? You heard me. I want a divorce. This marriage died the day you brought me to meet your family and didn't defend me when they treated me like trash. My voice was steady now, clear. I thought tonight would wake you up. I thought showing you the truth, about them, about how they treat me, would change things. But I see your face right now, and you're not looking at your mother with anger. You're looking at me. He stood up. You ambushed us. You planned this whole thing. To defend myself. To show you the truth. But you still don't see it, do you? You're upset with me for exposing them, not upset with them for how they've treated me. I picked up my purse. I'm staying at my mother's tonight. We'll figure out the details later. Helen found her voice. You can't leave. We need to talk about this. Talk. I turned to her. We're done talking. For 3 years, you've spoken. Now you'll listen. You're a hypocrite and a liar. You built your entire identity on a lie, then tortured me for being honest about who I am. And you, I looked at Marcus, you let her. You chose her cruelty over my dignity. That's not a marriage. That's not love. I walked to the door. My mother and sisters followed. As I reached the threshold, Victoria called out. You'll regret this. Breaking up this family over some old letters and hurt feelings. I turned back one last time. The family was broken long before tonight. I just made sure everyone could finally see it. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello. A man's voice answered. Is this Marcus's wife? My name is James. My heart stopped. How did you get my number? Margaret gave it to me. She thought I should know what happened. He paused. Can we meet? There's more to the story than what you found in those letters. We met at a coffee shop, ironic, since that's where Marcus and I first met. James was in his 60s, distinguished looking, with kind eyes. He ordered tea, and we sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Then he spoke. I never stopped loving Helen. But I wasn't Marcus's father. I stared at him. What? But the letters were written by a young man in love, hoping, wishing. But Helen's husband Richard was Marcus's biological father. Helen and I had one night together, right before her wedding. She thought maybe, but tests were done when Marcus was born. Richard insisted. Marcus is his son. I felt like the ground was shifting. Then why did the letters say hope? Desperation. I wanted that boy to be mine because it would mean I still had a piece of Helen. But he wasn't. Richard raised him, loved him, never told him about the confusion. Helen kept the letters as a reminder of what might have been. But they weren't the truth. They were fantasy. I drove home in a daze. I'd exposed Helen's pregnancy before marriage, that was true. But the bigger revelation, that Marcus wasn't Richard's son, was wrong. I'd destroyed my marriage, humiliated the family, over a misunderstanding. When I got home, Marcus was there, packing. James called me too, he said quietly. Explained everything. I sat down, suddenly exhausted. I'm sorry. I thought. You thought you had a weapon. You thought exposing her would vindicate you. He wasn't angry anymore. Just sad. But here's what you don't understand. You were right about everything else. My mother did treat you terribly. I did let it happen. The part about James doesn't change that. He sat across from me. I talked to my mom after you left. Really talked, for the first time maybe ever. She broke down, told me everything. About being poor, about feeling ashamed, about marrying my dad for security. She said you reminded her of her younger self, and she hated you for it. Hated that you didn't seem ashamed of where you came from. Hated your confidence. That's not confidence, I said quietly. That's survival. I've been fighting my whole life to be seen as worthy. Your mother's cruelty wasn't new to me. It was just the same old song, by a different singer. Marcus nodded. I see that now. And I see how I failed you. I was so busy trying to keep peace that I sacrificed your dignity. That's not love. That's cowardice. He zipped up his suitcase. I'm moving out. You can have the apartment. I'll cover rent until the lease is up. Where will you go? My own place. Away from my mother for the first time in my life. He smiled sadly. Maybe it's time I grew up. He paused at the door. Your trap didn't work the way you planned. But it worked. It forced all of us to face truths we've been avoiding. Mom's dealing with her past. Victoria's in therapy. And me. I'm learning to stand on my own. After he left, I sat in the quiet apartment and cried. Not because I was sad, I wasn't. I was relieved. The weight I'd carried for 3 years was finally gone. Yes, I'd made a mistake about James. Yes, I'd hurt people. But I'd also freed myself. 2 months later, Helen called. Can we talk? We met at her house. She looked older, smaller somehow. I owe you an apology, she said. Several, actually. You were right about me. I was cruel because you represented everything I tried to forget. But that's my shame, not yours. Thank you, I said simply. Marcus tells me the divorce is final next week. I nodded. And you know what? I'm glad. Not glad that my son's marriage failed, but glad that he's finally becoming his own person. You did that. Your trap, as everyone's calling it, it sets him free too. I left Helen's house feeling strange. Not victorious. Not vindicated. Just complete. My trap had embarrassed the family, yes. But it had also revealed uncomfortable truths that needed revealing. Sometimes the only way to heal a wound is to expose it to light, no matter how painful that exposure might be. I'm starting my job at the free clinic next month. Living alone in a smaller apartment. Dating myself for the first time in years. Learning who I am outside of that toxic family dynamic. The story didn't end with justice or revenge. It ended with the truth. Messy, complicated, imperfect truth. And sometimes, that's exactly what everyone needs most. Comment below where you're watching from and what time it is. Let's see how far this story travels. And if you've ever had to expose a truth to set yourself free, you're not alone. Sometimes the trap we set isn't for others, it's to free ourselves. Subscribe for more stories like this.